This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining me on Stockbox today is George Roates, who is the CEO of Premier African Minerals. Hello, George. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Mark, and good to be chatting to you again.
Yes, thank you for coming on. Of course, the company has released notice of an AGM where there are two resolutions seeking to re-elect you and also the preemptive rights to issue 5 billion shares. So that number, 5 billion shares, that might be quite scary to some people to see that, warning bells of dilution, etc. are going on. So can you perhaps just give some rationale behind that?
Sure, Mark. I think there are a couple of comments to be made about it. Firstly, that Prem's stated funding requirement at the moment relates to the DFS at the Zulu lithium deposit in Zimbabwe. And I've been clear that I think the value and potential value of this is such that Prem should retain 100% of it. So I'd like Prem to be in a position to be able to fund the DFS. Now, I've got no intention at this point in time of trying to fund the entire 5.1 million for the DFS in some single direct placement. I don't think that it's necessary to go down that route. I think that what is necessary right now is to demonstrate the additional value that this property potentially offers to us. And I think the way we do that is through the drilling and resource extension work that we're already mobilized for and effectively about to start, and the early stages of the DFS. And I think that that's going to demonstrate to a much greater extent the real underlying value of this deposit. And it has the potential a little further down the line, possibly 6-8 months down the line, when we're able to come out with some decent incremental news and updates on Zulu, to put us in a much stronger position to look at possibly alternative funding mechanisms. I've said for a long time that there are a lot of people talking to us about this. There's a huge amount of background activity in the lithium space at the moment. We know this. It's in the marketplace. And I honestly feel that the more value we're able to show at Zulu, the better the returns are going to be for shareholders. So coming back to your point, the fact that is the disapplication that has been requested should not be interpreted in any way as the intention of the company to run out and try and utilize the full amount of that, et cetera, et cetera. The other point worth making is that it's a big sounding number, but in terms of the overall number of shares that Prem already has in issue, it's not a very big percentage. So I think that we should also be a little conscious of that.
Okay, so you say there it's to help fund the DFS, which is always a very poignant point in a mining company's lifetime to get the DFS, a very big milestone. And you say that is going to be in about 12 months' time?
It's 14 months from mobilization date. Initial mobilization on the resource side and on a whole lot of other issues has already commenced.
Okay.
So let's say 14 months, give me a little bit of latitude.
Okay.
So middle of early, probably Q2 next year.
Okay, Q2 next year, okay. If you say that's going to cost roughly, you said $5.1 million US.
Yes.
So, say £3.5 million, thereabouts, something like that. The preemptive rights of 5 billion then at the moment, at today's share price, if that allows you to raise roughly 10 million pounds, you could argue that you don't need to issue 5 billion. You could seek permission to issue far less than that. Would you agree?
Yes, indeed. it should not be interpreted that this is a number of shares I want to go and issue immediately. I think that if I may speak as a shareholder as well as as the CEO of the company, I have a fairly significant stake in Prem myself, and I'm not as a shareholder wanting to see a sudden issuance of that quantum of shares. As a shareholder, I'm speaking. So I hope that gives a little bit of comfort there.
And I guess then you've got a lot of headroom there, haven't you, then going forward?
Oh, indeed. So there is headroom. But as I say, let me just emphasize that the lower the quantum of shares that we need to issue, the happier I'm going to be. And I'm sure that that's going to drive. I'm sure that shareholders share that view with me.
I'm sure they do. The other thing I wanted to bring up with you, George, was just on the sort of share price and how it performs. It's often quite volatile, which is, there's a lot of liquidity there, which is generally a good thing. And I think you have quite a large retail following that's maybe a mix of day traders or momentum traders, that kind of thing. Would you rather see some predictability in the share price, which would help you in the future when you're planning to do a raise, rather than sort of having to do one when perhaps the share price is more healthy? Does that make sense?
Yes, clearly the answer to that is yes. But I think that there's a balance between volatility and share price stability. So I wouldn't, not necessarily, when I refer to volatility, I'm really trying to relate to liquidity. And it is liquidity that tends to drive a lot of Prem's ability to fund itself and to progress the Zulu DFS as we are doing at the moment. Coming back to your question, yes, obviously I would. And as we go forward, I expect to see, and I am working hard to try and achieve, an institutional investment base coming into Prem as well. And I think that driving the value in Zulu is going to allow us to move much more in that direction. And rather than see the huge swings in price, to rather see a steady and incremental share price related to the emergence and the driving of the value coming out of Zulu.
Okay, yes, good point. And if people want to get behind a stock, to buy into the story, really what they need to see is regular news flow, to see things are progressing, to see that timeline coming to fruition. So what can you say to shareholders who are considering that? And perhaps, what can you allude to perhaps what might be coming up?
Well, I am working at the moment on a fairly comprehensive update for shareholders on our projects across the board. And a lot of that will focus on Zulu. We have already discussed the mobilization in a previous RNS. It's been a little unfortunate that we've had to hold back a little in finalizing the further funding of Zulu. And that was really because there was a preemptive right to others, which does expire at the end of this week, I believe it is. I believe it's the 7th of May. So that hurdle will be over now. And I anticipate that the first big steps to come out of Zulu are going to be in the further definition and expansion of the resource itself. We've always said that we have a very large exploration target, and getting back on site with a program which is targeting 20,000 meters at this stage, 3 rigs that will soon be turning there, et cetera, I am excited that that's going to be a driver. So that's number one. Number two, and to a lesser extent, and I don't want to shift the focus from Zulu, is the fact that quietly in the background, the price of wolframite has been increasing. The ammonium paratungstate price has been steadily increasing. There has been a batch of test work done on RHA. The results are all with consulting engineers at the moment who are busy examining this and looking at modifications to the flow sheet. With the price of APT, I'm quietly expectant that we're going to get a good outcome there at the end of the day. And that doesn't take us away from other properties we have in Mozambique. We expect to have some more tenements granted fairly soon. That's in the gold space. And then, of course, going back to Zulu, is the huge exclusive prospecting order area that we have that does contain other LCT pegmatites, some that are known, others to be discovered. It does have some historic gold mining, and in one instance, one gold mine that is currently being operated illegally, in inverted commas. So I think that there's a bundle of news that is potentially quite exciting. And finally, let me just say that we have not relinquished our connection with the manganese operation in Namibia. Our engineers have previously indicated that is potentially a highly profitable business. And I'm still driving very hard to get the accounting issues resolved so that we can take a further look at this constructively.
Okay. George Roach, the CEO of Premier African Minerals, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.